dramatic way possible.
Home of the Rangers.
With the Cowboys.
Into. Yeah.
Should the Cowboys trade Micah Parsons?
Have you looked at the fan text yet to see if there's a response here?
They won the division.
Shocked.
They're division champs. I was at Dick's Sporting Goods the other day. Mm-hmm. They have them for only
discount T-shirt.
They're actually right now 33% off. If you wait 3 more weeks, they will be 99% off.
I don't know if they'll ever get that cheap, but maybe.
I think it'll be 75% off soon.
That I could definitely believe. All right. So the first few texts I saw, and hit us up, truckwreck.com, text line 877-881-1053. Also, hit us up on YouTube and Twitch, are in support of it. I have a feeling that will change.
I feel like it's overreaction.
Okay.
But and I guess this question yesterday, my answer was, yeah, man, because I said blow the whole thing up. Just change a lot of the pieces out. But now that you're bringing back McCarthy, Dak's not going anywhere. You're going to give this one more shot. I say keep him around, because what Jerry has said is, I'm not trying to build a future team.
Yeah.
I'm trying to win right now. And he believes that Mike McCarthy gives him the best chance to win in this moment. And so if I am looking at my team and saying, I'm about to shred it and I'm about to redo everything, then yes, I'm about getting picks, man. And I also understand the idea that you're going to take your best player off the team and think that that's going to make you better, whereas most people are trying to add other players around your best player. So this is 2 different instances for me. Currently in this place where you are trying to run it back with the team you have, I don't think so, because now what you need to do is add to it. But if I'm going to rebuild, then I'm saying all my players that are of value, it was good having you. I'm going to try and get valuable picks for you and build an entire new roster.
So,
because I think you could get a first and a second out of Micah.
Okay,
if not 2 firsts.
That's what I'm intrigued by, is knowing the value, the trade value as well. All right, so Micah Parsons next year his cap hit will be $5.4 million. And then after that, you still have an option for 2025 before you hit unrestricted free agency. And last year, over the cap had his contract value at $26.6 million. So you're talking about a player who, at least for one more year, will be probably $20 to $22 million below market value. And then the year after that, he'll still be below market value. And that's where I wanted to start while we go into this.
I think this is a fun radio conversation. The one thing that we know is ever since Herschel Walker.
Yep.
And obviously, let's just give Jerry all the credit on that one, because he then kept doing those things later in his career after Jimmy left. So, I mean, he was consistent.
No, he didn't.
But he takes the credit for Herschel Walker, yet then he never made any bold move like that the rest of his life without Jimmy Johnson, which is always interesting that that's the path he goes down. But just look at things, don't listen. If you look at it, this is a fun conversation, but I would be shocked if Jerry signed off on trading a player in his prime, getting valuable assets.
For sure.
He just never, ever since Herschel Walker, the organization has never gone down that path. The closest they got is they traded Amari Cooper for a 17th round pick.
Okay, I agree about unlikelihood of making the trade. However, I guarantee you there are people who work for this team and are in that building that think the Cowboys should trade Micah Parsons.
You think there are?
No, I know there are.
Okay. All right.
And so
is there a reason that, is it because of maturity? Because I do compare this a lot to Luka, in that he needs to grow up and be a different type of leader than the one that he was.
Here's the thing that I thought out. And tell me if this sounds like the Dallas Cowboys at times. Micah is great.
Yes.
No doubt about that. But does he not also represent some of the issues of the Cowboys? He talks a lot, but doesn't back them up in the biggest moment and doesn't take responsibility for it, and is still gonna want to get all the money and get paid. I'm not begrudging him for getting paid. I'm just saying that sounds like this team. We talk a lot of big talk. Then when nothing happens, like I posted it on our Facebook page yesterday, the idea that Jerry Jones used the word accountability in his statement about McCarthy, I think is laughable because he was talking about accountability for himself. Accountability for himself is whatever he wants it to be because he's never going to get fired. So like, that's like, if you did a terrible job, if I did a terrible job, we would get fired. But that's not the case. And so if this is a guy who, you know, I don't necessarily need to do the things for practice, I'll show up on game day. If he's somebody who maybe doesn't want to show up for media day, if he's somebody who's going Josh Hamilton's route and going off of pure talent, is that eventually going to catch up to you? Or is that somebody you want to invest all your money in?
Oh, wow. That's interesting because that last part that you said there, the Josh Hamilton thing, makes it feel like you're insinuating there's not a lot of study in what he's doing.
Look,
I don't know that.
I didn't just randomly I did come up with this topic, but then I decided that's true. But I decided to start talking with some people. And I'm not saying the overwhelming sentiment is these things, but there are enough people who I had conversations with that I was like, okay, let's see what people think. And I'm just curious what people think about it because Mike is right. It's a fun radio conversation, but I don't think it's likely to happen. But you still have the time to consider it. And I wanted to look at this objectively. Like if you think the practice thing, if there's other things that maybe he's not given his all for, if you think there's like, doesn't matter, how does he show up in the games? That's all I care about. He's about to be top 3 defensive player of the year for the 3rd time in his 3 years.
And it's weird too, because in training camp, we were like, man, he needs to not practice because he's disrupting everything the offense is trying to do. And then we're like, he comes out, he's like, I'm just trying to make the offensive lineman better.
Yes.
And so like there is this weird, like when he wants to, you know?
And this is where I kind of run into the disconnect because I'm going to read this quote back to you. And you might think, well, that doesn't make sense. You should want high achievements. Totally agree with that. But listen to this. This is Micah Parsons. I think we can be up there with Ray Lewis's defense. I think we can be up there with a Legion of Boom. I don't just want to be mentioned in the Hall of Fame. That's a great accolade, but I want to be one of the greatest in the Hall of Fame. All right? So let's juxtapose that with what's happened in the biggest moments. Again, I don't begrudge him for wanting that at all. It is great to have high aspirations, but he's not one of the team leaders. And your systems function so much better when your best players or some of your best players are among the team leaders. I'm not saying every team, your 1, 2, and 3 best players have to be the team leaders, but he is the best player on this team. Or if you think Zach Martin's the best player, he's the second best player on this team. He is not one of the team leaders. And maybe that's because of age. I can't rule that out. But I looked back at the playoff games. 4 playoff games for Micah Parsons. In those 4 playoff games, total 18 tackles, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, and 4 quarterback hits. His pressure rate against Green Bay, lowest of his career. Now, counter argument, LaFleur, he was prioritizing stopping Micah Parsons. He was sending extra help to stop Micah Parsons. I hear that. And I understand.
And then not only just took him out, but then also took out other linebackers while those other linebackers are making poor decisions along the way as well.
Exactly.
And like that was, if I'm Micah, I was probably very frustrated with the way that some of my teammates played.
Sorry, Mike. No, I feel like I've cut you off a couple of times.
Keep doing it.
You're not.
This is the team you, would I say this correctly? And then this is the team you care about the most?
On the professional level, I could see that. Yeah. Man, I do love the Rangers. It's pretty close between them and the Rangers.
Your passion's coming out.
Exactly.
Right
Micah is great. I also think he represents some of the issues that this franchise runs into in general is, I'm great now, I'm always going to be great. Don't worry about it. Instead of, I'm great now, let me make sure I do all the work to stay great or do even more work to be greater than that.
But he did a bunch of work this offseason, right? Like that's all that we heard was he wanted to put some extra, make sure that he was in shape late in the season. And so he did some other things to make sure that he was prepared for a full season going up against the big defensive or offensive tackles.
And I appreciate that in the offseason. I do. I really do. Is it there during the season?
I don't know.
And that's one of my questions. Is he, because he's going to get huge money. Whether it's here, whether it's elsewhere, he's going to get all of the money. But sometimes we run into the problem here with the Cowboys, and a lot of other organizations do as well, that you're paying for some sort of inherent leadership that you think is going to come along with this contract.
Yeah.
I think we're going to make that mistake. I don't think he's going to be that leader.
I think it's silly to compare him to Ray Lewis in this. Ray Lewis was calling out offensive plays and disguising things to make the quarterback go insane. Peyton Manning has talked about it. Like, Ray Lewis is one of the smartest football players ever. Now, he had a little bit of a different responsibility. He was not rushing the quarterback the majority of plays, but he knew where he would he would study so much that he would know things. And then he had another guy on the backside of him later in his career, Ed Reed, who would also know all of these things and help out. I do think Micah Parsons is I say Lawrence Taylor starter kit at this. Look, I don't think that Micah Parsons is getting coked out and doing all kinds of things.
I'm not saying that at all.
No.
Yeah.
And you're not. And I'm just saying, like, Lawrence Taylor was an individual great player, but he wasn't doing like just as soon as you snap the ball, I am going to go kill the quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's
relentless. Yeah.
That's who Micah Parsons needs to be. He needs to stop saying all these things. He's not studying, like, we know this from the people we talk to. He's not studying tremendously or helping out other players on the team with their responsibilities. He is a guy who is trying to get to the quarterback. And that was what Lawrence Taylor was the greatest of all players in the history of football at. He would just go get the quarterback. And you had to deal with, hey, he might be out partying till 5 a.m., if you know what I'm talking about. Like, but he's going to show up at 11 a.m. and he's going to do his job. And as long as he does his job, we're not dealing with that with Micah. But he doesn't have, from what we understand, he really doesn't have any leadership qualities that you would want from your best defensive player. But it doesn't mean you can't succeed with that.
From losing a game like that and just leaving, that's something.
Even when they win, and he doesn't have the stats he leaves.
Yeah.
It's all about him, which is fine. You can have players on your team that's all about him, but you have to understand that those guys can't be spokesmen in your locker room. It doesn't matter what he says to us. The players don't believe he's a leader. They just know he's a super great player.
I will say, for me, this would be less about attitude, less about effort, and more about what his value is in the market.
Okay.
So for me, it's about trying to acquire as much as I can to build a better team. And if I have a good individual player, that's great. Can I get multiple good individual players that can be better?
And the issue, okay, hold on to that point for just 1 second, because that's a really good point. The issue that you're going to run into, because I've seen some people, I've been trying to look, it's like there's a lot of feedback, is for the Herschel Walker trade. The issue is, like, the market for the NFL has kind of changed in general. But Herschel Walker, 1,514 yards rushing, I do believe, in his last full season before they traded him. But that team was also really bad. Mm-hmm. And so that's what made life very much easier. Now, Corey,
it goes back to this earlier when I was like, this team is trying to do it now.
Yes. And you brought up a really good point that I honestly think is the biggest thing that is going to kill this whole deal, is they're trying to do it right now. But if they did, if you made that trade for not only draft assets, significantly cheaper players. Mm-hmm. So that's where
they need that right now.
Yes. And that's where it goes into is, could you get somebody that you think could be 75% of Micah Parsons for what is going to end up costing you 20% of Micah Parsons? And I know that's probably not a fun way.
It's crude business, right?
Do it, yeah, but that might be the logical way to build up this team. So going back to what Mike said at the beginning, I don't think it's going to happen. I would like discussions. If there are people in your building that think you should trade him, then I think that's a conversation worth having.
From the 4-6-9, they changed his position but did not replace it. And that's something that I will hold them accountable for. They were like, hey, we're bringing back Leighton Vander Esch. Everything's going to be fine this year. We're letting go most of our linebackers, and Micah's an end now. We have a linebacker and Clark.
Can I give them an excuse? They did have their third-round pick who they were relying on get
overshown
hurt.
If you talked about
But
anybody,
it was before the season that they knew he wasn't going to be there. It was in training camp.
Right.
So they had plenty of time to make a move after that. And I am reacting very emotionally there. But they had plenty of time to make something happen, and then they were like, "We're going with safeties instead."
I do think, to your point, Kevin, which the Cowboys won't consider. They are not forward thinking in this at all. You're about to give him $35 to $40 million a year. You're about to give Dak Prescott $55 million a year. You're about to give CeeDee Lamb approximately $30 million a year, looking at what those positions get for the highest paid players. They're all going to be, when they sign their contracts, Micah will be the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. Dak will be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL in the next few months. And then CeeDee Lamb will probably be the highest paid wide receiver when he signs his contract. I know that, yes, Justin Jefferson will take over. It'll keep going up. But if you start doing the math, and I know you can manipulate numbers, but if the cap is at a certain number and you're paying your quarterback 55 and you're paying your top wide receiver 30 and you're paying your top defensive player, let's just say 35 a year, you start running into issues that, can we be great with those three guys? Are they that good that they can carry at times weaknesses on teams because of the salaries that they're making? And I think the answer is no, but the Cowboys won't look at it that way. They'll say, dude, do you know my kids want number 11 jerseys and my kids want number 88 jerseys? To be honest, maybe it's because they hear me talk too much. They do not want anything to do with Dak Prescott jerseys and haven't for years. But there's millions of people that do want Dak Prescott jerseys and want number 11s and want number 88s. And that's what's most important to this organization. And I don't think Jerry will look at number 11 jerseys and go, dude, they're selling out at Dick's Sporting Goods. They're at our team shops. We're not getting rid of that guy.
The other thing, Kevin, I just saw you reply back to this person, but somebody said, can we have this conversation about the QB? And I just want to add to that.
Sure.
That goes in part of me also trying to get as many picks as possible. Hey, how many first-round picks can I add to this team? Because that's where I'm getting the best quality players in the first round.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm having that conversation about as many players as I can that have value. But this, again, that is a lot of work. And I got to be willing to do the work to go pick up the phone, call teams, not say, I'll wait till teams call me, which is a position of power. I got to go call teams and say, hey, I'm ready to make a deal. Do you want this player or not? Because I got some value for him. Now, the other part of it is somebody did say, yeah, but they'll get you, like a 7th-round pick for him instead, because that's what the Cowboys do.
Yeah, then I'm out.